this finger out of my hole. I've been walking the road too damn long. I'm a crippled and a riddle with doubt. I need to get the finger out.
Hello all you wonderful people. Hello, my name is Darryl and this is the Get the Finger Out podcast. I am your host, Darryl, as I said already. This podcast is a mental health / self-motivational sort of podcast. I don't know what it is. It's me trying to get better and sort my life out to get the finger out, and hopefully being a companion to you whilst you maybe try to get the finger out already, or just as simply a little entertainment podcast or anti-anxiety podcast. Somebody said to me that's heard the podcast already that they like to listen to it in the car, and it feels like there's a passenger in the car with them on that long drive, you know. This week's podcast is, well, first of all, I'm going to talk about because I released 6 episodes at once there, and it was a very busy week getting it together. So I'll talk about that a little bit first, and then I'm going to talk about rock bottoms in addiction or just in life, if random shit that might be happening to you and you've just hit a rock bottom. You've hit a bottom and you've just said, fuck, I need to get the finger out and sort my life out. I keep name dropping the podcast there, but sure, why not? My voice is a little bit croaky because I was singing all weekend, and now the good weather has hit and I've started to get hay fever, which it blocks my nose up, so I find it harder to sing, and therefore I'm putting more pressure on my throat. And all weekend, if anybody heard my gigs, I was just like, blah, blah, blah. But sure, whatever. I've got some antihistamines into me. I bought one of those little bands you put on your arm, you know, that apparently it pushes a pressure point and does something to restrict blood vessels or something like that there. But I don't know, I think it worked the first day, and then I was like, is this just a placebo? Because it didn't work the second day. Definitely didn't work when I was really bad, you know. But I took an antihistamine yesterday and it was I'm alright today, I think. So maybe there's less pollen, maybe it's working, maybe it's not, but I'll keep taking them anyway. Because, and then yesterday I just felt genuinely sick. I had like a bit of a fever, and all that added up, and I spent the entire day yesterday just in bed trying to eat healthy stuff, and some unhealthy stuff was comfort food as well. The irony of the whole thing is I had another day out. I went to a gig and it was cancelled because there was no one there, and we basically went and had a night out to watch live music somewhere else, and my friends were having drinks, whereas I was on alcohol free, obviously. And then it was almost as if I was the one that had the hangover, because yesterday I spent all day in bed and I felt feverish and sick. I actually even threw up. Maybe it's because I had too many alcohol-free beers and a big kebab after. So I don't think I'll be drinking as many. I'll maybe have an alcohol-free beer and a glass of water and space it out that way, the way normal drinkers are meant to. So the podcast, yeah, I'm very happy since releasing it. I'm glad to just get it out there, and the reviews I've got from people have been amazing. Many people have messaged me looking to be guests on the podcast, and I've also had many people just saying the podcast was good and they enjoyed it, and so I might be on to something good there if it's good enough, you know. But as I said at the very start, you know, mainly I'm doing the podcast for me, and if I can help a few others, I'm happy. If I end up helping thousands of people, that would be amazing as well. But at the minute, you know, I feel like, you know, since I'd done a load of episodes there, I wasn't able to analyse, you know, or get a feel of the podcast fully until I sort of started listening to them back and stuff. And, you know, I've realised sort of flaws and stuff as well. Mainly, well, 3 main things. First of all, I think I need to get a bit more structure in the podcast. I do write a few little things down on a little piece of paper, But I think I'm going to start trying to structure it with a slight bit of intro. Hello, how are you? Talk about the objectives, the daily objectives I'm doing, and hopefully maybe some people are looking to do themselves. And then talk about like a topic, about something that's maybe happened in my past or something that I've learned from. And then talk about, you know, strategies and methods to overcome such situations. But it'll all happen in time. It's a work in progress, as I said from the start. I'm enjoying it. It's fun. Even I've been talking for 5 minutes already, and I just feel so much more calm and relaxed. The second thing that I noticed, which a lot of people do when there's a camera on them, or even when you're just talking to people, is crutch words. Crutch words meaning whenever I'm sitting talking to you and going and ending each sentence with, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, yeah. And these are words that we use to fill the space, to fill the gap whilst we're thinking of the next thing to say. But what this does in a situation of talking to someone, or even on camera, is that it doesn't allow someone to fully digest what you're saying. You're just talking like a motor mouth. I think I said in one podcast before I was talking too fast, but I wasn't even talking too fast with information flow. I was talking too fast by just in between each word or each sentence I was saying and not giving the listener or the watcher enough time to think. But also in situations when you're talking to people, not just friends. I suppose in friends you're more comfortable and you just do what you want, but I mean, even if you're talking in your job, if you're working in a shop and you're talking to a customer, if you're working in an office and talking to clients, and if you're an entrepreneur, if you're doing any job where you're communicating with people, it's a bad communication skill. It's not a communication skill, it's a bad communication habit that we're all guilty of, and there it is again, so I've been setting objectives every week of stuff that I'm looking to do, like drinking more water and making the bed. And the new one for this week is, and it's going to be for every week for as long as I do this podcast, is I'm going to try to be consciously aware, as I'm trying very hard right now, to not use crutch words and to leave pauses. Because if I say something to you and leave a pause like this, then you can digest my words easier. But I'm not going to speak like that because I sound like a fucking psycho therapist or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's something I'm going to work on. So I'm going to try to not use crutch words and try to use uhs and ahs. Another thing I noticed from the podcast was I fiddle a lot. So I'm going to try and, I always have a cup of coffee in my hand in the podcast, because maybe it's because I'm an alcoholic and I need something in my hand to drink. Like when a smoker quits smoking, they need to eat chewing gum or smoke a vape or a fake cigarette or something. But that's good coffee. But yeah, so I'm going to try and just use my hands more like this. A few people giving me honest criticism, and saying I was fiddling a lot. I even noticed myself fiddling a lot, particularly grabbing my belly. For those who are watching, those who are just listening, then it doesn't really matter. But this is something that I'm going to maybe work on in the future. But trying to not use crutch words and trying not to fiddle all at the same time as trying to deliver a podcast, which is sort of half structured but half off the cuff, is too much to think about whilst I'm trying to deliver the podcast. So just for now, I'm going to try and stop using crutch words as much. Nextly, so the objectives, I was so busy getting the 6 episodes out, because when I was filming them, I can never say that word. When I was shooting the podcasts, it was fun, it was easy enough. I had a little resistance sometimes to get them shot, But once I was doing them, I was just loading them onto the computer, loading the files onto the computer, and then leaving it. And then a week before, you know, the episodes were meant to come all out, and did come out, I had to sit at the computer and edit them. I kept hitting brick walls. You know, I was editing them at too high of a file size, and you know, all these technical problems I kept running into because I'm new to all this, you know. I've edited videos before and stuff like that, but you know, the podcast thing is a whole new game, and trying to, you know, figure out which platform to use in order to upload to separate platforms and blah 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 blah. Not interesting stuff, but basically it was a busy week, and I wasn't focusing on the things I said I would focus on, like drinking the water and making the bed. So I'm not going to do it in this podcast, but next week I'm going to form a little bit of a routine. So in the mornings I can drink my water, make the bed, do my meditation, and, you know, like go for a walk, whatever, all in the first like half hour of waking up. And then that way it'll be easier to do those things, because I realised if I keep putting podcasts out and keep putting out separate little daily objectives or daily goals, there'll be too many and my head will get completely fucking wrecked. So I was saying on one of the podcasts about habit stacking, and that's what it's all about, stacking the habits. So you do one habit which leads to the next habit. So it's like I wake up, I get out of bed. As soon as I get out of bed, I make the bed. As soon as I make the bed, I sit back on it and meditate. As soon as I meditate, I fill up my water bottle and start drinking water. You know, stack the habits on top of each other so that I can group them all into one and then start working on new ones. So I'll do that next week because I need time to work on it, because today I'm actually doing the podcast on the same day that I'm putting it out at midnight, because I've left it all to the last minute because I'm so busy with other projects and stuff as well. So yeah, I'll do that next week. Anyway, this week I'm going to talk about rock bottoms. And before I talk about rock bottoms, I had one little thing that happened to me over the weekend. I was with a friend, and we were doing a wee thing together. We were doing something together, and basically in my head what happened was I said to my friend, hey, can you do this here? And then afterwards my friend said to me, hey, I would appreciate it if you didn't speak to me that way. And I was like, are you serious? What do you mean? And I had no idea. I didn't have a clue. And then he went on to explain and said, you know, it's the way you said it to me, and you were talking down to me. It was like you were resentful, blah blah blah. And then, you know, I realised and I understood what he meant, and then I realised I do that all the time. You know, I do that in my work when I'm dealing with, you know, people I play in a band with. I do that in, you know, talking to my parents, my girlfriend, my friends. And basically what way it came across to him was, here, fucking do this now. You know, with a stern look on my face, without even looking jokingly about it. The way I said it in my head was, you know, I thought that I was on the page with people, that I could talk to them that way, and done it so many times that it became an autopilot thing. But really I was being a fucking asshole, you know, in general. So that's something that I need to work on in my own personal development, and communicating with people as well, is, you know, being conscious that I need to be respectful, and people have feelings, and me talking to people that way is not good. I realised, you know, I don't know if it's usually when I'm doing something, like if I'm on my phone or on a computer or playing guitar or anything like that, I find it hard to, you know, talk to someone at the same time. So when I do, I'm sort of like devoting about 10% of my consciousness to like talk to a person, whilst focusing on the other thing I'm doing, or even if I'm thinking about something, you know. And I think in this particular situation, I was in a bit of a bad mood as well. I had a sore leg for health problems and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, I was making that person feel little and shit about themselves by talking to them that way. And I don't know if it's because, you know, I would be used to being talked to quite sternly by other people in my life and not mention any, and maybe that's rubbed off on me. It's also probably a bit of ego where I am in my head in that situation. I'm feeling like I'm like in control of people or something like that, which is a really negative quality to have, because, you know, our egos are, you know, when you have a big ego, it's you're an asshole, you know, but it's not your fault either, because it's just the way you've learnt to be. Some people are happy to have a big ego, which egomaniacs, and those people need to get the finger out, you know. I've had big ego at points in my life. You know, normally when good things are happening to you and you start to think you're better than other people, and then, you know, it takes something bad happening to you or something to realise, oh shit, I'm an asshole. But anyway, in that situation, it was either a combination of that there, a combination of my concentration. So I think I need to be more conscious when I'm talking to people. I had a talk with my girlfriend before a gig, saying at this gig tonight I'm going to try and be really positive to her and my guitar player on the stage, and also when I'm dealing with other people I'm going to try and just be I don't need to be positive all the time, but I need to be conscious. I need to be respectful. I need to be respectful of other people, especially when those people are helping me out, you know. And yeah, just be conscious when I'm talking to them. And it's mainly just being conscious, I guess, because I wouldn't talk to somebody like that if I was fully conscious. If I'm fully conscious, I'm always trying to be nice and be a good, respectful person. It's whenever I'm thinking too much about something else or whatever, you know. So that's something I'm going to start working on, and I just wanted to say that on the podcast because I feel it's quite important for me. And if anybody else listening out there is, you know, if you feel like people are annoying you all the time, or people are telling you you're annoying them all the time, maybe you should look at yourself a little and realise what energy am I giving out? How am I communicating with these people? How am I saying things to people? You know, if you're working with colleagues and you're so used to talking to your colleagues, or if you're someone's boss and you're so used to, you know, just expecting them to do what you tell them, and then, you know, you get so used to it, and then one day you're busy and you're stressed and you just speak back to them and say, you know, someone comes in and goes, what time do you need this document filed at? And you're sitting at your computer busy and stressed out going, just file it at fucking 4 o'clock, you know, or something like that there, you know. Or if your work colleague goes, hey, can you help me with this? And you go, look, I'm busy, you know, or something like that. You know, you could reply and say, sorry, I will give you a little help shortly, but right now I'm quite busy. Or if you were the person's boss, you could just take 2 seconds to turn around and look them in the eye and say, yes, could you file that 4 o'clock for me, please? Because, you know, when you're young, you know, well, if your parents were decent enough parents, they always tell you to have manners, and manners cost nothing. And that's so true. And I've noticed so much, even in shops and stuff today, a lot of customer service and everything is so bad, mainly because, you know, well, I have many theories, you know, but I definitely have a theory that mobile phone culture has made people more not present, you know. And if someone's serving you like a coffee or some food in a restaurant or something, they could be having a bad day, and it is hard to be nice and positive and go, here you go, sir, and anything else for you, sir, when you're having a shit day. Of course it is. But it's also, there is ways around it, you know, when you're having a bad day especially. But obviously it's hard when you have a bad day. But when you're having a normal day and you're just working your job and just saying, well, I'm just doing this job to make money and, you know, fuck everyone. And then the person says, excuse me, I ordered a latte, not a cappuccino. And you turn around and go, right. And then you just say, right. And then you just go change it for them and they go, there you go. Like all you'd have to do in that situation is go, oh, I'm very sorry, I will change that for you right away. And then just change it, and then you go, here you go, I'm sorry for the mix up, it's quite busy today. You know, it's a few extra words and it means you enjoy your job a bit better because you're being better at the job. It's less likely that the person's going to say anything negative back to you. They'll go, usually a nice enough person will just say, it's no problem, thank you so much. If they do continue to be a jerk to you in that situation, then they're an asshole, and you just gotta realise they're an asshole. I mean, if it was me personally, I would probably say something passive aggressive back to them. I would say, it's very busy, there's nothing I can do, what can you do, it is what it is, or something like that. Because that's not being a dick, that's just saying it how it is. That's not even passive aggressive. But if they continued to be a dick, I'd go, would you like to speak to my manager? I'm quite busy here. I have some more coffees to serve. But yeah, where was I? So, yeah, manners. So manners cost nothing, you know. And if you're running your own business, and most people running a business know that manners is important. Well, I've been in many businesses before, actually, you know, that you go and get food or something like that, and the person who owns the place is fucking terrible at customer service, you know. And it's just such an easy thing, is to just be mannerly, just say please and thank you and smile, eye contact, all those things. I'm pretty sure that's how I got the job that I went for recently, doing I'll not say what I was doing because I don't want to link it to any businesses or anything, but I just said in the interview, you know what I'm just telling you now on the podcast is that I've noticed customer service has went rapidly downhill these days. And me, for one, when I was growing up learning customer service, it was always about maintaining eye contact, doing what you can for the customer, and just being a really nice, genuine person, you know, in the job role. And I think that resonated with the person who was interviewing me. But unfortunately, when I went to do the job, then, you know, the job wasn't what I thought it would be, and I thought I would definitely not enjoy it. And I also thought, you know, if I just apply myself a little bit more, I could make money, you know, being self-employed, doing something. So yeah, manners cost nothing, and it costs nothing to be a mannerly person, so be nice. And yeah, so that's all I say about that. So I'm going to move on and talk about rock bottoms. And just before that, actually, I was just wanted to give a little shout out to Emerald Guitars up in Donegal. They asked me to come along and do some modelling for their guitars, which I thought I would never be good enough to do, but apparently they enjoyed working with me and I really enjoyed it. But Emerald Guitars are fucking awesome. I really enjoyed them. I got to play a load of them when I was waiting to go do the photo shoot, and even when I was doing the photo shoot I was playing them, and they're just so great. There's two types of guitar players in this world. Ones that look after the guitars and clean them every week and all that, and then there's guitar players like myself who are unorganised and just beat the guitar to bits and don't cut their strings, and the guitar gets dirty. They leave it in bad temperatures, hot temperatures, cold temperatures, and the guitars I was playing, it doesn't matter if you do that, they will still sound fucking great because they're made out of carbon fibre. So I really enjoyed that, and thank you very much, Emerald Guitars. And one day I would love to get an Emerald guitar, you know, one way or another. So not finally, it's only not even halfway through the podcast, but I think this will be a long enough topic, so that's why I wanted to get everything out of the way before I talk about this. So, rock bottoms. Just want to get a little bit of coffee in me before I start talking again. I've realised as well, I think I'm going to have to switch my drink in the podcast. I'm going to have to stop drinking coffee because I think around a certain amount of time, usually when the coffee's gotten too cold or when I finished it, that my throat gets really dry and I start to, you know, find it hard to talk. But usually so far that's happened around the same time that I've, you know, started slowing down in my brain from talking for an hour, and usually I cut the podcast off then anyway. But, you know, in the future I'd like to cut caffeine out of my life, not completely, maybe 1 coffee a day in the mornings, but at the moment I'm like definitely a full-blown coffee addict, as well as addicted to about 1,000 other things. But yeah, rock bottoms. So as I said before, a rock bottom is, you know, I'm obviously going to use the alcohol as, because that's when I've hit my rock bottoms in life from using alcohol. You can also hit a rock bottom from, it's basically if your bad habit or addiction or whatever it is, you do it so much that it's fucked your life, you know. And by fucking your life, it can mean many things. A lot of people think a rock bottom for an alcoholic would be, as I said before, the park bench drunk. You know, you've lost your house, your kids, your job, you've lost it all, and you're lying on a park bench and you don't even have enough money for a bottle of cider and no idea of how you're getting out of the situation you're in. And normally that's the situation when people have admitted defeat, you know, and go to Alcoholics Anonymous to try and get better. But I've hit rock bottoms before with alcohol. Now you can hit a rock bottom with, you know, smoking weed. You could hit a rock bottom with watching too much Netflix, and maybe Netflix is your coping mechanism for anxiety, and you don't want to leave the house and go do things. You know, you're asked out to a family gathering or out with your friends, or you're asked to go do a job or something like that, and then your rock bottom is like you're lying in bed and you've lost your job because you just couldn't leave your bed because you wanted to watch the next episode on Netflix or something. You know, it's not even laughable. You know, it's a lot of people, everybody jokes about binging Netflix, you know, but it's a fucking addiction. You know, it really is. It's specifically designed to be more addictive as well. You know, I think podcasts are a great thing because you can use them as your companion as you do other things. You know, I love podcasts when I'm driving, when I'm in the bath, when I'm exercising, things like that. I don't really exercise much lately, but when I'm doing other things, I find the podcast good because podcasts can be entertaining as well as informative. I particularly like when I listen to like the Joe Rogan and I'm, you know, going for a drive to Belfast or something, or to anywhere, and I'm listening to some fucking, you know, physicist talking about string theory, some shit that I know nothing about, but they talk about it as if they're talking to the average Joe, which is ironically enough Joe Rogan. So yeah, I think podcasts are great, but Netflix it's fucking great as well. I've got my next Netflix use down to, I'm only watching maybe 1 hour, sometimes 2 hours a night of it, and I'm happy with that, you know, because I do enjoy it. It's the same way people enjoy a drink, and they can go out and have a couple of drinks and go home and doesn't fuck up their next day, and they don't drink the next day. More importantly, you know, I'm good with my use of Netflix, not good with my use of drink, obviously. But I'm doing good. I'm 11 weeks sober now. Tomorrow it'll be 11 weeks. Next week will be 12 weeks, the day before I go to do my ayahuasca experience. So the podcast after that should be quite interesting, I'm sure. If you don't know about that, you can go back to one of the earlier podcasts where I talk about ayahuasca. I'll probably talk about it more in depth when I do a little research, maybe. Sorry, I had to refresh my laptop as I do every 30 minutes every week. So the rock bottoms, yeah. So rock bottoms for me with the alcohol, I've had a few. I'll maybe talk about some other ones in different podcasts, but one of them happened to me when I was in Australia. So I moved to Australia with an ex-partner, and I moved from Germany to Australia to start a new life. I had stopped drinking in Germany because I've been trying to stop drinking for years, and I moved to Australia. I think I put up a Facebook post saying 1 month sober, actually. Maybe that was a different time, and I was all like so proud of it, and I ended up getting drunk like a few days later. It was fucking ridiculous. But I moved to Australia. It was crazy because it was so hot. We were staying in some random dude's house through a friend of a friend, and we had a couple of weeks there until we got our house sorted. And what happened was I ended up getting drunk in Australia, and then I get sober, then I get drunk, and I was really enjoying it anyway. You know, I wasn't really getting too much eternal dread when I was hungover or withdrawn at the start. And then I did start to get that. You know, I started, you know, because I moved there with I had about $3,000 I think saved up. And you know, you need to have a certain amount of money, they say, to get into Australia. Like, they check your bank or something. I don't think they actually did check my bank, but maybe they do sometimes. But I went there excuse me, I went there with about $3,000 or 3,000 quid or 3,000 euros, I can't even remember. And I got there, it was good fun. And then that's when I started going to AA again, because I went to my first ever meeting of AA in Dungannon like years before that, where I'm from in Northern Ireland. And then I went to an AA meeting in Australia. Had a really enjoyed the meeting. I was like, this is great. And then I ended up drunk again, and things were getting rocky with the partner I was with. You know, it was constantly staying. I was mainly like, when I was hungover, obviously, as everybody says, I was like, I'm never drinking again. But as soon as I got sober a couple of days, you know, I wanted to drink again, but I was staying off the drink for the purpose of staying with this partner. You know, so I would get drunk, then it would be over, you know, with the relationship, and then I would, you know, come back crying, patch it all up, then same thing would happen, and that just kept happening over and over again until I actually got sober for I got sober for 2 months, but I actually got drunk once in the middle of that. So I was sober for all of December. So I moved to Australia in, I think, September, October, and then by December I was sober for a month. And then my partner at the time had went away somewhere out of town, and I had this little flat with all these people from China, and they all didn't speak English, and I just felt so alone. I'd no real friends out there, you know, and I just said to myself, you know what, fuck this, I should just get some wine and drink it in the flat by myself, which is pretty sad, you know. If you're having a beer or two watching football, or a beer or two to wind down in the evening or something like that, okay, you know, that's fine. But if you're sitting there by yourself, getting completely blocked by yourself, like, it's definitely not healthy. I'm sorry, like, that's not healthy. But I bought 2 bottles of wine off some website, and they delivered it to me, and I drank 1 bottle, and I felt fucking great after 1 bottle, so much so that I didn't even drink the second bottle. And then I said, right, that's it. And then the way my brain works is I'll start to bargain with myself. So I said to myself, I could just stay sober all the time, and then once a month I could get 1 bottle of wine, get completely blocked by myself, and then that'll be me. You know, I'll do it another month, and I'll just be my little thing once a month. It's like my monthly medicine sort of thing, which isn't unbelievably insane when I think back at it now, you know. But at the time it seemed pretty plausible, and it seemed, you know, you're talking to a man who's been to AA admitting that he's a full-blown alcoholic and stuff, and then a month later saying, oh, I'll have 1 bottle of wine once a month, that'll be okay. But anyway, so I was renting cars. That they had like a service in Sydney where you could I think you got like a little card, they send you out in the post, and then there's cars all over the city, and you can just book one online, and they're parked random places, anything from like a little hatchback car to like a van to like a, you know, a 4x4 pickup truck thing, and you just scan the card at the top of the windscreen and you get in and you're driving a car. So I remember going to rent a car to get somewhere in Sydney, or maybe it was just something fun to do, and I had the other bottle of wine, so I had to get rid of it, you know, and I didn't want to put it in the bin in the apartment, and because the Asian people might come in and be like, what's going on, why is there a full bottle of wine in the bin? And that might happen whenever my partner's back, and then I'll get in trouble, you know. So I was like, right. So I walked outside to find a bin, couldn't find a bin, so I just said to myself, do you know what, I'll just set it here and I bet you somebody will pick it up. I mean, if you're walking down the street and there's a full bottle of wine and you were ballsy enough to pick it up to see if the seal had been broke, and it hadn't been broke, you would take it home. Of course you would. A lot of people wouldn't, but a lot of people would. I know I would, for fucking sure. But I set it down, I went for my drive, I was away for like 2 hours, came back and the bottle of wine was still sitting there. Partner wasn't going to come back until the next day or two, so I said fuck it, took the second bottle of wine, went into the house, drank it, and then I was halfway through drinking it going, this isn't going to be enough, you know. I had one bottle of wine the night before and it was enough, but tonight it's not going to be enough. So I went and bought some beers, went back to the apartment, got proper drunk, and then I was like, that's me. I had a hangover the next day. I think my partner came back after that, and then it was all right. I think I moved into a new apartment, and around that time, and then it was a bunch of people from, there's a country, I can't remember the name of the country, but it's sort of like half in Russia, half in Asia. It's like a cold country, and apparently the people love to eat a lot of meat. I can't remember the name of it. Oh man, that's gonna wreck my head. But anyways, so I was living with a pile of people from this country, also really bad English and stuff, and I was another month sober, and then my partner's parent had come over to visit me, and I rented one of these cars again to pick her parent up from the airport, and was driving around, you know, being like, I'm a great guy, I'm 2 months sober, and look at me driving this fancy pickup truck, even though it's only like £30 an hour to rent it or something, or $30, and you know, I was doing great. And then that little 1 month, you know, for some people it's easy to be off something for a certain amount of time, you know, it's easy to stop drinking for a week. For me, it's nearly easy enough to stop for 2 weeks. You know, when I go into AA and say I'm a week sober, everybody claps, and I'm like, stop clapping, you know. I do that shit with my eyes closed. I'm not the type of alcoholic who drinks every fucking day, you know, and craves the drink when I'm not on it for like a day. I'm the type of alcoholic who binge drinks. I'm a serial binge drinker, where I find it easy to not drink for 2 weeks, and then I get that little pang, that little, oh god, I'd love to have a drink, and then I end up, you know, maybe bargaining with myself of how I could drink, you know, without annoying everybody, and, you know, think of what I can say to everybody to minimise the damage, you know, for drinking, and then I'll end up drinking. But then once I start in that situation, it's almost like I don't want the binge to end, or I don't want the party to end. You know, some people get that, you know, when they go to like an after party and then people start going home, and you're like, oh, I don't want this night to end. But for me, you know, that would go on for anywhere between 3 days to 2 weeks, you know. And it starts off quite good, you know. I enjoy my drinking at the start. The first 2 days the first 2 days drinking, I enjoy it. And then on day 3, I'm starting to feel proper hungover. Then I drink again, I'm fine. Day 4 or 5 or 6, I'm really bad, and I'm not even drinking for fun. I'm drinking to make the bad feeling go away. And then after a certain amount of alcohol, then I'm sort of not drunk, but I'm happy again. I'm not feeling as sick. And then I, you know, just keep that going, and then I'm in oblivion. Then I'm in, like, my brain is not recording what's going on. I'm not present whatsoever, and that's when I'm saying the craziest shit. I'm saying stupid stuff. I'll tell people I want to kill myself. I'll tell people, I'll start punching myself. I'll say all this crazy shit, and, you know, you think I'm a full-blown I don't want to say a crazy person, but like, yeah, I'm a crazy person. I'm a full-blown crazy person in that situation. But I'm trying not to get sidetracked here. So rock bottoms. So in Sydney, so I picked up my partner's family or parent, and then I just said, sure, you go have fun with your parent. I'm a great guy. I'm going to go to the beach and write some songs. And that for me was a way to create an idea in her head of what I'll be doing when she's away from me. So in her head, she's like, well, Daryl's away to the beach to write some songs. I'm with my mum. Her attention won't be on me too much. And in my head, in that situation, I was like, I hate this. I'm gonna fucking destroy everything. Maybe not consciously. Consciously, I just wanted to have a drink. I just wanted to say to myself, I'm just gonna go have a beer, and tomorrow I'll either say, shit, sorry, I had a beer, but I'm off it now, or tomorrow I'll just hide it and tell lies. But what happened was, as soon as the alcohol got in, and then I'm becoming less and less conscious and more just a big bag of unconscious drunkenness. And I went to a pub, so at this time I was living with somebody that was also in recovery, and the house rule was obviously you drink and you're out. You bring drink into the house, you're out. And so what I done was I went to a bar. I felt so guilty drinking the beer. It was like as if I was 14 drinking beer. You know, when you're in a bar and you're too young and you're scared of getting caught. That's what it felt like. I went up to the bar woman and I was like, can I have a schooner of mid-strength beer or whatever? And it felt so illegal. And then I drank a little bit, and it also almost made me feel sick, because I wasn't used to drinking it. I was like, fuck, it's not too good, but I'm doing it now, so I might as well do it. And then I drank on at it. I went to another bar, and then I went to like this sort of dive bar that I used to play music in Sydney. And it was just full of Irish people and English people getting fucking pissed out of their brains. Although you couldn't get too pissed, or you had to hide being pissed in Sydney, because they're really strict on being drunk, because I think it's something to do with the law out there that if I went to a bar and got really drunk and then started a fight somewhere else and got arrested, the bar could be liable. I think that's what it is anyway, correct me if I'm wrong. So they're really strict, and it was a complete eye-opener going, being there and then coming back to Ireland and seeing people at the bar just holding their hand out with their chains going, I have a drink please, blah, and not getting kicked out, and that was a fucking eye-opener. But anyways, don't want to get too sidetracked. So I went to a bar, I met a girl, I brought her home, made intercourse and then woke up, my housemate came home, knocked my room door, came in, there's a girl there, there's empty bottles everywhere, and he's like, what the fuck? And then I woke up the next day, I was in the horrors. I was like, I have to tell my girlfriend that I cheated on her, basically. Sorry, I'm not a bad person, but that was a dick move, But I guess what was happening there was I was just subconsciously trying to destroy everything, not just my relationship, but my house. I felt so low of myself that I just wanted to destroy everything, and I succeeded. So this is me getting close to my rock bottom. So I told my girlfriend what happened, and she basically said, well, we're fucking over. She left bin bags of clothes to my house and all that shit. My housemate was being nice to me, but he goes, you know what needs to happen? And I was like, I need to leave. And he was like, yeah. And I didn't want to kick up too much of a fuss and be like, well, I have nowhere to go or anything like that. And I think I was still hating on myself so much, and I maybe wanted to drink as well. So I fucking left. I left the house. So I'd lost my relationship, I'd lost my house, and I had no friends really, a couple of, weak ties with people, but nobody, they were all mainly travellers anyway, so nobody I could really, say, can I stay in yours or anything like that. I had a friend over there at the time who was in a different country. I couldn't talk to him, just nobody, and so I just... so this particular situation, I went out Oh, so sorry, I was still in the house, and then I went out, and I was carrying all my music equipment in like a trolley, and then I had like my clothes and stuff stacked on top of that. And then round this particular time, it's all a blur, but basically what happened was I lost my fucking guitar and stuff like that, and I messaged the bar saying, is my guitar there? And they said no. So I thought I'd lost that, which is my only money maker, because at that time I was making money by playing music in a bar or gigging on the street. And then I went out, I ended up getting drunk, and I spent whatever money I had left. And then I had met some like Vietnamese woman or something, and I ended up getting her on Facebook or something like that, because I know that night I lost my phone. And so I'd actually went back to the house I was being kicked out of. I don't think I was fully kicked out, or I still had a key or something like that. And then once I left that day, that was me gone. But I had lost my phone, so I spent the day walking around the police stations to try and find my mobile phone, and I was asking around the pubs and stuff like that, couldn't get it. So all I had was I had a laptop but no internet. And how did it happen? Yes, so in the police station, I was sort of rock bottom in it at that moment, and I was like, excuse me, what do people do when they've no money and nowhere to live? And I'm completely fucked. You know, I'm not a homeless person, but I'm homeless. And the policeman gave me like a leaflet to these like homeless shelters, you know. So I rocked up. Oh yeah, I had a backpack on, one of them like traveller backpacks, you know, and I rocked up to a homeless shelter and walked in, and the guy was like, no, you need to come in at this certain time or else you can't get in. So I was like, right. I went to another one, and he basically said no backpackers allowed, and I was like, I'm homeless. And he was like, because he seen my backpack, you know, a big bright colourful backpack, and I'm dressed like somebody who's, you know, travelling, you know, and he's like, no backpackers. And I'm like, but I was a backpacker, but now I'm homeless. Can I please have somewhere to stay for the night, just to put my head down, you know? And he said no, and then I was just like, what the fuck, you know? I didn't know what to do. And then I went to so this was the moment of rock bottom when I broke, and I basically went to the street, and I was sitting outside of Woolworths in, I forget the name of the street in Sydney, somewhere I used to busk, and I just sat down. So I'd no phone to contact home. I can't remember if I had a debit card or not. My guitar went missing, my relationship was gone, the house was gone, I had no friends to help me out. I didn't know what the fuck to do. I was completely like, I don't know what to do. And I just sat down in the fucking blistering sun. I didn't even have water on me. And I sat down and I just started sobbing to myself. I started crying. You know, in that moment I was like, is there a God? Like, can God help me? Is it God? Are you there? You know, I was just crying on the street. I didn't even know how to contact my parents. I don't even think I'd want to contact my parents, because if they knew I was having such a rough time, they'd be like, fucking come home, you know, you're fucking withering away out there. And so I just basically sat down, started crying, and was crying in the sun. And oh no, sorry, so I wasn't crying yet. I was sitting there just thinking, rubbing my temples. I was just rubbing my temples, going, right, think, Darryl, think, you can get out of this. You've been here before, you've been in bad situations before, you can get out of this. I kept rubbing my temples, and then this woman came over and she just set €5 down, you know, as if I was begging, you know. And then I seen that, and then I needed €5 as well, so I just said thank you. And then she walked away, and I just started crying my eyes out. And I took the €5, or it wasn't €5, $5, sorry. And I just started crying. I was just like, oh my God, has my life become this low? Like, you know. she said something like, get yourself a coffee or something like that. And I was like, Jesus. And the worst of it is, all I could think is, if I buy a pint, maybe that pint could help me out a little. And then, so that was my rock bottom, you know, but I didn't change after that. I'll tell you the rest of the full story some other time, but I'll tell you quickly how I got out of the situation. So I've been in a worse rock bottom. So where am I going with this? Anyway, I got out of the situation by finding some Wi-Fi. No, I had to find somewhere to go in first to charge my laptop. Then I found somewhere with Wi-Fi. Then I was trying to find, you know, someone, and the only person I could find was the fucking the Vietnamese woman that I was with the night before. And like, she didn't even speak good English, but she met up with her anyway, and then she started buying me drinks, and I was just riddled with shame and guilt, and didn't know what I was doing. And then she bought like a hostel for us for like a week, and then I just ended up drinking for like a week and stuff. And I eventually got out of that situation, meeting a friend, and an old friend and stuff like that, who just moved over to Sydney. And yeah, like there's way more to that story, but I need to put it together in my head, or I'll just keep fumbling. Now I've hit the point where my head starts going woo woo woo. My voice isn't dry, but that was a rock bottom for me. But the point is, the rock bottom when I stopped drinking recently was completely different. So that was a rock bottom where I'd lost it all. Okay, I didn't have a family and a car and a big job and a house and blah blah blah, but I'd lost everything from what I had, you know, travelling. You know, I did pull myself together after that and got out of the bad situation, but it was fueled with alcohol, you know. But that's a crazy story I'll tell another time. But in regards to recently, I've only another 5 minutes left here, but recently it was with the fucking police, you know. So I was in a situation where I was like kicked out of my house. I was drinking by myself, going to pubs. I had a bit of money, and then I'd spent most of the money, and then my mother didn't want me in the house if I continued to drink, and she told me I couldn't drink in the house. And then the police were called, and then the police were trying to find me somewhere to stay, and I was out of my brain drunk. And as I mentioned before, you know, the policeman sat down to me and says, "Darryl, do you know my name?" And I was like, "No." And he was like, "If you continue doing what you're doing, you'll know my name, and you'll know all the constables' names, because you'll keep getting yourself in bother," and blah blah blah. And then he had this big heart to heart, and he said, "You know, I've seen people that have drank themselves to death, and drank themselves into jail, and drank themselves into mental institutions. You know, I know we have eyes on all the drunks that are wandering and or the drug addicts and the drink addicts, blah blah blah." He had this big heart to heart. He talked to me for like 20 minutes, and I was sitting there going, "Oh right, yeah." And then he said, "Right, Darryl, are you going to stop drinking?" And I goes, "No, I'm not going to stop drinking. What are you on about?" And I think that made him, you know, realise, this is after a couple of hours, like, you know, and that made him realise, you know, I'm going to have to try and nab this guy and something. He started asking me about drugs and stuff, and I could tell the policeman was trying to just trip me up, you know, so he could find a reason to arrest me and put me in the drunk tank. And, you know, because I wasn't being disorderly, I was just sitting there. But then eventually, as I said before, I can't remember how it happened, but I turned around and said something like, "These cunts over here." And he just said, "What did you say?" And I was like, "No, like, I called you cunts as in like a word of endearment, you know." And then he just said, "Right, Darryl, I'm arresting you," and blah 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 blah, and put the cuffs on me. And, you know, my mother and my girlfriend are crying, and I'm just like, no. But I knew not to like resist or fight back, because, you know, that's the situation when the police fuck you up. I've heard horror stories about that shit before. But yeah, and then they took me to Oma, put me in a cell. And the reason I'm telling you this and being so honest about it is that was my rock bottom. That was the period that, you know, when I'm drinking, I have all these people around me telling me, you know, that I need to stop, that I'm gonna kill myself, I'm gonna end up drinking myself to death or drinking myself into jail or whatever. And part of me knows they're right, but part of me thinks, I can keep this party going, and I can party so hard to the edge, and then before anything really bad happens, I'll just pull myself right back. But whenever that situation happened, that's when it truly got out of my control. I got arrested, I got put into a cell, and then sobered up slowly, withdrew from alcohol in the cell, and was just like, oh Jesus. And I was pacing around in circles, and I just basically started realising that, all those people, like family and friends, what they're telling me is right. They are fucking right. I am going to end up in jail or dead or in like a mental asylum if I keep on drinking the way I'm drinking. If I keep on drinking in general, because I can't drink normal. I've accepted it. I've surrendered to the fact that I can't drink like a normal person. Usually when I'm talking to friends that aren't alcoholic about the situations I get myself in, they think, because I'm not the guy who's drinking every day, because I'm the binge drinker, or because I tell them that I ended up fucking everything up on day 4 or day 5, they always say something like, if you could just, drink for 1 day or even 2 days, then you'd be fine. And that sounds good in theory, but the thing is, there's a saying in AA or in recovery that one drink is too much and 1,000 drinks is not enough. And that basically means, you take 1 drink, it's too much, because that's you fucked. You are thirsty. First you take a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes you, is another wee thing that they say. And basically that means, like, you take a drink because you decide to take a drink, and then the drink takes a drink because it's the drink that decides that you take another drink or buy another drink or whatever, and then the drink takes you, because then you lose yourself, and it's just, as I put it earlier, you're just a big ball of drunken unconscious madness. So being in that cell, I just realised I have well and truly fucked myself this time. I am just going to start being really brutally honest. If I feel like I need to drink now, I tell people, because it takes the power out of it. I've had a few tiny cravings sort of in the last while, where I'm driving a car, it's a sunny day, I imagine going to a foreign country or